I have no idea how. I go do it.
All right, I slacked out the extra session. We're gonna get, yeah, you'll be able to find it on YouTube. Okie dokie. So what we're gonna do for this one, whoops. We're probably just gonna start an app together, unless anyone else has something else they'd rather do. What? Yeah, it's streamed, so it'll be recorded on my channel there, and then I'm gonna try to, download them, give them to Duran or whoever to have them upload them. So you'll be able to find these if you can't stay the whole time. So I feel like the Express stuff, like it's cool to see how React ties in with Express, but we probably won't get to that part today because a lot of us are more comfortable with Express. Yeah. Yes. No. Maybe so. Okay. We'll touch on it definitely next week. More than this week. I want to focus just on React as much as possible. So we're going to just start from like create React app and just go on our merry way. Is anyone opposed to that? No? Okay. So create React app. What should we call it? What kind of app do we want to make? Call it Jason, the app? Yeah, that's great. We're just going to call it Bootcamp app. It's very generic. We'll go with that. Yes, so I went to the terminal. I have create React app installed globally, right? And then you just go to a directory that you want to be like the parent directory. And you do create React app and then give it a name. And that creates in there, it creates the directory, Bootcamp app. They will have your entire React client set up. Okay. In code. So create React app is really great, obviously for bootstrapping an app. It's a good place to start, especially when you're new and you've not done anything like Webpack and you've not manually bootstrapped this stuff before, because it's totally feasible for you to build an index HTML, build an index.js, and put it all together and build the minifier and build the bundler and all that stuff too. That's usually how I do it. The create React app is really great in the beginning, especially to kind of like see how this stuff works. So here's the default structure for the create React app. Okay, it's just a source file with a bunch of stuff dumped into it. Your app.js, app CSS, app.test.js, all that stuff's just kind of in one folder, and that kind of sucks. You don't really want that to be your final structure. So we're definitely gonna change that around. And I know that's not super thrilling in terms of like getting to the React, but we're gonna do that first because it's the easiest thing to do when your app is small. So really quick, the git ignore, it's generated for you. You don't gotta worry about it. Your package JSON is gonna have all of these build, start, build, test, eject, all of that fun stuff for you. There's a README. It's automatically built in. It has some helpful links if you need to see it. And then your index HTML, right? This is just, it's got some nice stuff built in. We'll eventually add Bootstrap to it maybe, make it a little bit nicer, right? Yeah, and it's got a div ID root, which your index this back up. Sorry about that. Is it back up?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. All right. My internet just dropped randomly. So, all right. So let's get back to this. What is going on? You can see my development server kind of broke because it can't get to this anymore. So the other thing we got to change, we changed the folder structure of the app. We have to put in components, app, right? And the last thing we need to do is have that fancy index.js that they do, index.js, and we get export default. That works. Yep. We got it up. Cool. Okay. What kind of components do we want to build? This is the hard part, right? We got to come up with stuff to do. And I'd have a better list of stuff to do, but Darcy literally asked me last night, like, hey, you want to do this? So why don't we do, we should eventually hit some API, potentially our own API. Why don't we do an app, a weather API? Okay, we can eventually hit the weather API. Why don't we do like a nice personal dashboard or something like that you can, if we're gonna hit the weather API, that you can save information about yourself or notes or something. I don't know. Well, we can grab styling from Bootstrap. Or how about, yeah, we'll do something like that. We'll just do like your personal page where you can store notes and you can look at the weather and you can, yeah, something like that. Maybe. We'll see. We'll come with it. Yeah, almost like a journal. We'll do something like that, okay? So what do we want to do first? We need the main page. We're going to add the router later. We're going to try to do this a single page first and just build some nice components that we can maintain and go from there. So first things first, let's have some state. Let's do have a way for them to enter their name to create this page or whatever it is. Kind of figuring things out as we go. So we'll create a state. We'll have first name, last name, cool. We'll just get rid of this last name app. Go ahead and look at the index CSS. Nothing in the app CSS. So app has text align center, has a nice logo, has some interesting stuff in it that we may or may not need. And we're going to probably need an input so we can enter our name, and then we'll have like a header or something that stores your name in it. Something like that for now. We're kind of developing this together so everyone can pitch in their ideas of where we want to go. I'm not super creative. So, like the date that you did this? Yeah, we could do that. Okay, so do an input type. Right. Gosh, this keyboard is really weird. Sorry. So the type is going to be text, right? Because we want to add the name. The name of this we'll make this first name. We got to give it the same name as the property and state. We're going to do value equals this dot state dot first name. Go ahead and was that? We'll do an on-change handler. And for now, just going to be like nothing, but we're going to fill that in a second.
You don't say value. So is it grabbing the value of this state first name and putting it into the value?
Yes. Okay. So when I specify value,
or when you do like the on change.
When I do that, so what happens is when I specify the value is going to be this.state.first name, it's literally reading the state for the current value of first name and putting it into the component.
And then,
yep, and then the on change is going to change that and force a re-render.
gotcha.
Okay. So we like this component. We're going to need to make a last name component. The same here, last name. Do a handle input change. Do that name value that they were doing in their example. That worked fine. Event target. State. Right. And we can go ahead and replace that right here. Logo is defined but never used. Okay, that's just a warning, not a big deal. You can see down in the output, it's compiled with warnings. We have this logo, but we never use it anywhere because I just deleted it. Yep. That state is explicitly changing the state, and state is the actual state at that time. Set state's a function, right? And you're changing it. And you have to change the state through this .set state, or else React won't know that it has to re-render, and it won't know properly how to change the state. So you need to use this if you're going to change the state on the component. Okay. So if we look at it now, our app is not going to be super fancy. That's for sure. It doesn't have any labels or anything like that. But we've got stuff, so that's good. This function, handle input change. Yeah, if you need me to slow down or anything, that's fine. Okay.
Like add this to Git, I add version control to it, and do like commits how you would normally at work, so they can see like, oh, you would commit after you add this feature.
It's a good idea. We can go ahead and do that.
And then they can see the code and get up later on.
That is a good idea. We will do that, Alex. I'm also going to remove right now this class name app off of this parent div because it causes some weird kind of centering and stuff. It's got its own CSS that I just don't want to deal with at the moment. Okay, everyone good with this? So Alex brought up a good point. We should be adding version control to this. So we're going to be adding our Git. So I'm going to go ahead and Control-C, kill that server. We're at the parent level, and you just go ahead and do git init. Okay. You may not necessarily, you can do this on yours while you're following along and store this on your own GitHub repo, but at the end, I'll put this into mine, and then you can copy this code, right? Status changed, right? And you want to add, go ahead and we do git add dot, and then we run git status to get more files, right? And that's just because Git doesn't really know what to look for per se. So this is a good time to commit. We'll go ahead and commit and initial setup commit. Let's call it that. That's fine. There you go. We have a first commit. Things are stored in Git, and I can come back and deal with this later. All right. So let's restart. That's the default branch of Git. I did git init. And Git populates a default branch called master, and that's why you see master there now, because I have a Git repo. So let's yarn start this again, just so we have our app running, and we can see it changing. It's gonna be pretty ugly. It's just gonna be two text boxes, right? It's pretty ugly. So one thing we can do is probably wrap these in like a form or something, just to get started, right? I'm just going to maybe just close that terminal. And then the other thing we can build are labels, right? Everyone remember labels? Now, one of the things with React, one of the things with React is not all of the original attributes that we use in HTML are available in React, like class and class name. You don't use class, you use class name, because we're actually in JavaScript, right? We're not in HTML. So class is a keyword in JavaScript, kind of confusing for React. Same with for. We can't just use for. So unfortunately, you have to do this HTML4. Get the label to work. FOR, HTML4. Right. And we'll see how this works when we're done. I'm sure it'll need styling. I'll probably bring in Bootstrap before we do much more. There you go. Looks a little bit better. Now we can at least see what we're changing, right? So some of those examples we've done so far, we'll have a little box that automatically updates as you change your first name and your last name. We can do that for now, but what I eventually want to do is have like a submit maybe that'll create a new page or something like that. But we'll worry about that later. For now, we want to enter our first name and our last name so React knows what's going on. Okay. So why don't we do another div? And we'll just do a p tag. We'll do I'm going to do some conditional rendering here. We're actually going to do it right up here in the render. And we're going to call this message. Oops. So my palm hits the trackpad and it moves the cursor all the time. It's really annoying. We're going to call this welcome message. Okay, set it to nothing. This state first name. Here you go. I'll show you in a second what I'm doing. We're gonna have two ifs. If this state dot first name and if state dot last name. Okay. So in here, we're gonna do if not welcome message. Welcome message equals welcome. All right. Nice string. And then welcome message actually doesn't need this because it's always going to be empty. Okay. This is ticks. We should always use the most convenient features. First name. How the ticks work? What are they or what do they do? It's just how JavaScript knows that you're going to be injecting something directly into the string, like this. You need to use those tick marks. You could use single quotes and you could do like plus and then add it, but this is a little bit more convenient, all right? This is for strings, not HTML. Okay. So in this one, we have to do, and hopefully this makes sense in a little bit once I'm done. If not welcome message, right? We want to change welcome message to equal welcome. And then welcome message is going to plus equals this dot state dot last name. So you put a space right here at the end of the first name. Yeah. And so this, we're actually moving this to a function because we're doing a lot of things to be a little bit more clever that don't necessarily need to be done, but we are doing them. And then we check if welcome message. Welcome message equals welcome message dot trim plus exclamation point. Does anyone know what this is going to do?
The first thing it will say welcome first name. And the second one, yeah. Is it always going to say? It's always going to default to the last name.
So, if there's a first name, we're going to say welcome first name.
Yeah.
If there's a last name, but there isn't a welcome message already, so there wasn't a first name.
Oh.
We're going to say start with welcome again, right?
Yeah.
And then we're just going to add the last name on. And just in case we didn't have a last name, we're going to trim the welcome message and then add an exclamation point to make it a full sentence. Because right now we have a space here after the first name. So if we don't trim this welcome message, we'll have a space and an exclamation point, and it'll look really weird, right? Well, there will always be a first name or a last name. So the comma is okay. So now if we look at this, it's welcome Carson, Howard, right? There you go. Build it dynamically, kind of a nice way. So they don't need to have a first name and a last name, but they have to have one of them to do anything. So now what we can do, build a function. Do this for us, okay? Build a nice little welcome message, and even better, what we should do is destructure the state. Then we don't gotta do this dot state dot blah. No. Go ahead and just do it. I'm just gonna do a quick replace where I get rid of this dot state dot in this function. But not there. We want it there because we're not destructuring there yet. Okay? I'll come back to it. I'm about to switch. Should still work. Let's just test. Oh, doesn't work. Anyone know why? I know why.
Oh, because the build is on top. You get the problem.
Not necessarily.
Because you executed the function inside it.
Keep a mistake. Happens all the time. I'll do it. I do it. It's not a big deal. Perfect. Works exactly how I want. Okay? Cool.
This one, when you call build the welcome message, you have to use the parentheses. But when you did the other one, you didn't have
Handle input change?
Yeah, so that one you use the parentheses. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. How come that one you don't have?
Good question. So Kareem was asking, how come when I call build welcome message, I'm using parentheses to execute the function, and on change I'm not? The reason why is right here at build welcome message, I want to execute the function right away. I want to insert the return value of that function into this p tag, right? But here on this handle input changed, I'm not going to execute it. I'm going to wait for the onChange handler to execute it. You can see here it takes in an event, and then it has to work with that event, right? So it's listening for something to happen, and then that's executing the function. But on the build welcome message, I myself am executing that right away. I want it to execute right away when the state changes. Make sense?
I have a pointer then. Does it really?
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. But...
Yeah, so it depends on exactly what you want to do, right? Sometimes you're going to sometimes you're going to execute right away, but like if we just did a handle input changed like that, we're going to get problems. Well, first of all, there's nothing being passed in, right? And like I can't pass in event. What is event? I don't have one of those. So we're saying it needs to happen automatically when one of these input changes, right?
How come sometimes you do like the callback function to pass in arguments? Like you have two parentheses starting in an arrow function, and then you would do this input change with like an event or something.
Oh, I see. So this one has a parameter that's being passed into it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have any parameters, you need both parentheses. You can also wrap this in parentheses. It's the same thing.
No. I mean, like when you, if you go back down, where it says this dot handle input change, before this you would put like two parentheses and then an arrow function, and then like
so.
And then this dot handle input change would have an argument of 10 or something like that. Like I've seen that.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah. How come this wasn't necessary in this case?
Because I'm trying to explicitly use the event. Now, the onChange returns an event, right? Or it passes an event into the function that it's executing. If I wanted to handle input changed and take in the event and like the first name at that moment, then I could pass it in this way, right? I can pass it in like that. And what this allows me to do is it basically allows me to call this function in a more granular way with more control. So I'm building an anonymous function that just accepts the event like the handle input change used to, but now I can pass in other stuff that I happen to have in state or in closure scope at that moment. So if you have like a prop that you want to pass through this handle input change with the event, this is how you'd have to do it.
Oh, it's because it's on the same component.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because it just needs the event, and the event is already passed through that function. I don't need to do anything special. And that's why. So that's a trick with like closure scope, right? You need to be very mindful, especially in React, of closures, how they work, what you have in memory at that time, and how you can use them. Because JavaScript is very good at allowing you to manipulate everything to work in the way you want it to work. You just need to be aware of what's there in your environment. Okay? All right, so we have this little form that's, I don't know, it's not super amazing, but it does something. It's a start. So what is something we could do before we move on? Well, let's add Bootstrap really quick. That's something we could definitely do. And then we can take this component, this form component, and we can move it out into its own. So let's look up Bootstrap. Most popular HTML, CSS library. Let's see. Introduction. Nice. We want the CDN. And hopefully, if using a compiled JavaScript, don't forget to include CDN versions of jQuery and Popper before you use it. Okay, so we're gonna need a whole bunch of stuff. That sucks, but it's okay. The create React app shouldn't destroy this stuff that's in the index.js, or the index.html, I mean, sorry. You can actually move these. We'll just move these to the head, keep them out of the body, just because the body automatically injects stuff from the React create Create React app, automatically inject stuff into the body, I'm pretty sure. Be mindful of that. Okay, whole bunch of stuff we just added. I know I did that fast. This is Bootstrap 4. I added in, and I went to documentation, download, and there's Bootstrap CDN. And that's what I just added. I added them on the head, right before the title. We want to verify that this exists. Let's go ahead and go back to our app.js. And equals. What are the class names for the inputs? They're like form control, right? Anyone remember? The form horizontal, right? And then in here, we can build a div, and we'll create like a, what are they called? Form control group? Does anyone remember? Form group. Form group. I know this is the boring part, right? But we should do it just to make this look pretty. We've got form groups. Let's make sure it's working. Nice. It's doing something. We wanted form horizontal, but that's okay. Make this a container. 2. Cool. Starting to do stuff. I think form horizontal was 1, wasn't it? And then these were form control. Gonna add that in. There you go. That's bootstrapped now. So it looks a little better. It's not. Oh, form horizontal. That's not what I want. I don't think. Maybe it was. Okay, well, we won't worry about it right now. Anyway, now we added some styling, right? Because we're going to want to use the bootstrap styling definitely in this app. So the problem might be that we need a row. We'll add a row here. When I'm going to add another div. Oops, DVI. Class name equals row here. Well, now we have some rows. Look, it looks a little bit better. Now they're not huge, taking up a ton of space. So it's really good. I wonder if form horizontal will work. That's what I thought it was. Oh, well, we're going to look it up really quick. Come on, forms. There we go. Form. What was that? Is that what it's called? Nice. Okay, perfect. It's form in mind. All right, there's a couple of things we can do here. One of the things I like that the example apps we've been working with does is they build like a call, a container, a row. They build those components, and those components are nice because they automatically handle like our bootstrap setup that we generally don't care about, right? I don't want to do a container and a row. Like I don't want to do this every single time. So in the components, I'm going to create a new folder. We just call it bootstrap because there's going to be a bunch in here. Create a container.js. You have to import React from React. Const container props. And since it's going to be one line, you can actually do this, just parentheses. Export default container. Remember, this one's going to be the div with the class name of container. Right? And go ahead and destructure these. We know that we're only getting children out, right? We don't care about anything else. We'll just put children right there. And boom, have a container. So if we go back to the app.js, and if you're going too fast for anyone, just let me know. Sorry. I'll go back to that in a second. Bootstrap / container. So I don't have an index.js because we're going to need these specifically. These divs right here, I can just, boom, replace with container. And our app should look the same, not give us any errors. If I go to the elements here, we should see that the div ID root, the first one is container. Good, it worked. Okay. Back to the container? Yes. Let me know when you're all good here. Yeah, question? I'm destructuring the props. That's what the curly braces are doing. So the props are still there, but we only have one property, and that's children. What was that? Yes, these are like, so we can quickly add Bootstrap components to stuff, them to do a lot of work, basically. And I'm actually going to capitalize this because everything under components, it's nice to keep them. Sorry, I didn't mean to move from it so fast. Consistent, so capitalizing that folder, Bootstrap, that's good. Are we all good on this file? Okay. One thing I want to do before we go any further that I forgot that you should talk about, something called prop types. So I know we're not super familiar with React yet, but we do know what props are. We've worked with props. We've seen them a bit. We're getting a little bit more comfortable with them, right? There's a library called prop types that we want to add. Yarn add prop types. Prop types allow you to specify the type of the props coming in. It's like a very explicit way to tell React, like, hey, I'm getting these particular props. This component needs these props to function. Not quite an ID. It's like basically saying if you want to build this React component, we're telling React that it needs certain props. And if those don't exist, React will freak out. It's a safety thing.
Gotcha. So it's creating.
I'll show you. It's like a list that tells you what needs to go in. All right. So now we have prop types added. Let's go ahead and yarn start again, just because we want it. We always want this running. Probably pop up on my screen in a sec. Yep. Okay. So we've got prop types. That's good. Let's go in here. It's easy now to add these, right? Call it like this, prop types. Prop types. And then before you export your component, reference a component, be dot prop types, and we're going to create an object. What this is going to do is this is going to match the props that are passed into the component. So we have children would equal prop types dot node. Actually going to be dot array of prop types dot node dot is required. Okay, it was a lot. No, because it's a property of the element of the component on line 10, but this is the library that I've imported. Let me just make sure that it's all good in here. We have nothing in the container, or nothing showing up here that's bad. So if I change this to number, I should get a warning. Okay. All right, so let's explain this a little bit. Prop types, like I said, prop types, it's going to match what kind of props you're passing into the component. Now, why is this important? I'm working on a React app. It's got 50,000 components and 20 developers, and we've been working on it for 2 years. And I have this component container. What the hell is a container? It's really hard to tell. Now, this container is pretty simple, right? It just takes in children and passes the children through, and we're doing some styling on a div. No big deal. But if you have something more complicated, like when we take that form we built, we move that to its own child component, and we want to put prop types on that, sometimes we'll want to know, just by quickly looking at it, what needs to be passed in. And sometimes even more so, we want to know from the console if we messed up. Because then we can guarantee, at least we can have a better guarantee of the safety of our application. That the things that need to go into our React components is actually going into our React components, okay? So this is throwing an error right now because I'm saying that the children needs to be an array of, and so this is how you specify a generic array, and it needs to have an array of numbers. We can already imagine that the children coming in are not numbers, right? They're going to be other React elements. So obviously, prop types is like, what? You're giving me a type of object, but I really, really wanted a number. What the hell are you doing? Look, it still renders. So that's the good news. It's still rendering everything just fine. The prop types library just sends out a console error to you saying, hey, you messed up. So it makes it really easy to find those errors, like immediately, right? So you can imagine what this can do in the long run for making your application a bit more robust and robust to change. There's not as much work conceptually and mentally a developer has to do when they look at that component to determine what exactly it's used for. So we don't cover this in class at all, but prop types is super important. There's other ways you can do props validation with like actual type checking languages, but we're not going to get into that. That's a whole different ballgame. So this is a really simple way to add some sort of rudimentary type checking to your React app. And I definitely recommend in all React apps you do it. So the way to specify, that you're going to get some React components in is with the .node. Prop types .node. Okay. Go back here. We're good to go. No problem. See that? Any questions on these prop types? I know this is a whole new package I added. One thing we're going to see as we're working on this React app together is I'm going to add a bunch of stuff. And y'all need to get comfortable with just seeing a new package and figuring out how it works. Because guess what? When you're in a JavaScript application that you're just starting on a job or whatever, there's going to be 50 or 60 different libraries in there. And you're going to have to figure it out. Get Kraken maybe has a couple hundred. So I haven't used them all. But when I find one, I just Google it really quick and see what it does if I need to. Sometimes I don't. So it's a good thing to get used to, is just dealing with the fact that there's going to be things you're unaware of. Any questions on this prop type specifically? This is really a pretty simple one, but questions on the prop types library, anything like that? Oh.
Top three to worry about, top three things.
Is it a top three thing to worry about?
Or top three things come to mind with prop types and that you use in the real world for prop types? Or?
I always use prop types. I mean, that's really all there is to it. I always use it to do this. Like, if you don't have some other way to guarantee the props coming in a component, you need to use prop types. So there's not really like a top 3 list of like why you'd want to use it, always use it.
This has to be an array of components.
Yeah, we have it as yeah. So necessary, you could have one component that comes in, but that's okay. It'll still count as an array of 1, right? Yeah, but I have a container, and the container has 2 rows. So if I just want one, it would not like that. No.
Oh.
Because I have 2 in there. I have 2 rows. Yep.
Oh, it couldn't say this an array of 1.
It will with this one. Yeah, but if I said specifically that I actually only want prop types node,
Oh, I got you. Okay.
this is when oh, I guess it doesn't have a problem with it. And it must automatically be okay with the array or not, but it's more explicit to say that you want it to be an array because that's what it is, right? It's just an array. I think so. Now let's see. We can test the other hypothesis if I take this out. Huh. Oh, that I was wrong. Yeah, I expected an array to get one. So I guess the safer one in this regard is just to do a node. A node must accept an array or an object. There you go, you get a node. So I learned something too just now. Prop types, if you're going to have multiple children, put a node. Otherwise, you can do an array if you're going to guarantee that you're having multiple children. So in an instance where you have like an unordered list that would have multiple children coming in, you could put array of, right? And that would be okay. So we want to make a row. We can literally just copy this code, create a new file, pretty much. Change this to row. Change this to row, and I can hit F2 because I'm cool, and just type row, boom, row. Same thing, copy it over, it's a row. Go to our app.js, let's replace all these rows with row. Gonna be a row, and a row, and a row, and the row again. Just gonna take in nodes. So now what are we left with? We're left with this form. Now, obviously we could go and add columns because Bootstrap has columns, and we do that a little bit later. But we have this form. This form is gonna be a good one to refactor out. It's gonna be actually a really nice one to refactor out. So why don't we do that? We'll call this user form. We're going to copy all of this right here. Our index, or our app.js, I'm sorry. Paste it really quick. Actually, import that from that. And import your prop types. And we can do const form, user form equals props for now. Dump it in there. Okay.
Yeah, way behind where you are.
Okay, where do you want me to go back to?
I was like, I never even finished getting that built in the first place, so.
Okay, do you want me to go back to the container? Because the row is just a copy of the container with everything from this as container changed to row.
I skipped it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't feel bad about making me slow down. I get I'm going pretty fast, so I'll stay on here as long as you need me to.
Can you explain, I think I missed when you were explaining why you changed from the prop type array of to just prop type node.
Yeah, so I changed from prop types array of to prop types node. Oh, nice little squeak there. Because when I had the array of in and I removed all the components but one, it threw a prop types error. So apparently when you do prop types.node and you pass in an array of nodes, that's okay. But if you have an array of nodes and you only pass in one node, it's not okay. So we made it a prop types.node because it's all encompassing. You can pass in multiple children, a single child, what say you, and it's fine. As long as you have a single child in there, because of the dot is required, you're okay. Yes, of course. And this logo, I'm actually going to remove this because we don't use it right now. What's up, Trent? I would have to see what's going on. Is anything happening at all?
Yeah. Actually, the React. Not sure. Yeah.
Do you have console logs in your build welcome message to see what's going on? Are you returning the welcome message? Yep. Anywhere you want. So in here, console log all over, make sure that it's being built properly, not throwing an error or something. I mean, you'd see an error if there's an error, but make sure it's returning. Yeah, you have to return it and you have to invoke the function. So those are two important things with this, or it's not going to work. All right, what else do we need to look at before we move to the user form portion of it?
You go to this form section, I think I missed something you were adding.
You see how as we add the container in the row, I know we didn't replace a lot of code with those, but it's starting to look a little cleaner. We have less class names, less clutter. You know, it's just getting easier.
Show you my last one. I'm set of rows. I use the title feedback. That's not fine. In that form.
What was that?
Do you need like a second set of rows? All right, go on.
You got it? Okay. We're still working. That's good. Okay, are we ready to move on? Are you guys still working? It's okay if you're still working. I want to know. I want to get feedback so I'm not sitting here forever. The doofus.
So you made this into like it. Get some lines.
This code?
Yeah.
Or the recorded thing?
No, this.
I'm going to post this to GitHub, and then I'll share a link to that repo. Y'all can fork it or pull from me or whatever. I'll just make a private repo. And then we'll work on it again next week to add more. So we were,
Your actual stuff.
yeah, you use it as a template. I don't care. It's not going to do anything super fancy. I thought we'd be able to get more done, but realistically, we're not. So what we're probably going to do is refactor this a bit more, and we might look at Redux. We might just work on more components. We'll see how we feel. Like 2 hours didn't seem like a lot to me, but or it seemed like a lot to me, but it's really not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to actually be a lot. Yeah.
I gotta go to a funeral.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear. Are we all good? Really quick, before I move on any further, I'm just going to add a column one. Since we normally do that for Bootstrap, so we'll just call it call.js. This one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to want to know the size. Right? We're going to need to know the size that I have to render. So we're going to have a different prompt too. We're going to have size. And that's just going to be a string. It's going to be like LG dash something, MD dash something, SM dash something, right? So we're not going to do anything too crazy there. So we're going to add another prop types dot string. This is going to be a string. And we're going to make it is required because we want it to always be there. Right? And I know there was an example of trilogies that did this, but it was kind of weird how they did it. So we're just going to make it nice and simple and assume that you have proper syntax on your size. There you go. Your column. Make sense? What I just did there?
How would you call it?
Okay. I'll show you. I'll show you. Waiting for everyone to get caught up, have this component, and then we'll add it in.
So you couldn't call like multiple sizes on this, right?
No. Prop types will fail, which is a good thing, because it'll tell us you're messing that up. So we can actually make this. I think you can add like a validation routine if we really wanted to get serious about it, but I don't. And you could say like, hey, it needs to be XSSM, MDLG or whatever, and then dash, and then 1 through 12. Like you could probably do that, but that's a lot of work for right now. We'll just make sure everyone does it right.
No, I'm saying like you couldn't call Excel 6 or and then LG 4.
Not on the same one, but you could make another one and assign it a different size. What was that? Prop type's like, it's like the required type of the prop that comes in. It's like, that wasn't very good.
String?
Yeah, so see how it says prop type string? It's going to check size when it comes in to make sure it's a string. If it's not a string or it doesn't exist, it's going to be mad. Be mad at you. Say, hey, don't do that. Are we good with this? We ready to move on? Almost?
Is this the way like you normally do it? Like you'd actually do your form and all that stuff first, then you start pulling everything out?
Yeah,
Or would you actually
probably.
work the other way?
No, I'd probably do it that way because I don't really know what I need before I start, right? So As long as you don't get too carried away and go too far, it's not that bad to pull it out. It's really not. React makes it pretty easy. But if you take it too far and you like build this whole app and then you want to go back and do it, good luck. Have fun.
Or, I mean, but since you already built it, I mean, you could probably just cut and paste.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to need this.
Yep. All good? Cool. It's a column. Let's go ahead. Import that one in. Jeez, come on. Bootstrap and call. Laptop, man. Messing things up. This is my personal laptop. I'm sorry. So, we need to call this one, right? That's it. That's how we do our call. So, assuming I did everything right. There was one more. What? Yeah, it is right now. But we're going to move this entire thing to its own component in a second. Now remember, this app.js doesn't have any props. Not right now, at least. If we get a router, it might. So we don't need to add any prop types to it. You can set like default state and stuff. Yeah, we won't worry about that. We're all good with this? All right, so let's look at our user form. So this is that form, that whole form section I just copied from the app.js. All right, we're gonna get it started. So we know we need props, and we know we have all these form components, and eventually I can break these down even further to like take the form out and have like an inline form bootstrap component. Like we could build all of those if we wanted to, but we're not gonna worry about that right now, just because I don't want to waste time building these stupid bootstrap components yet. But I might add those later and commit them. So after we build the user form, we'll do another git commit too. Okay, so the user form, what do we need in? Well, we're gonna need a few things. We could make this super generic and like allow the form to build its own components and stuff. But we're also not gonna go that far yet. What we're gonna do right now is just have the first name and the last name built in, and we're gonna accept a couple of props. We actually only have 3 props we're going to need: a first name, a last name, and a handle input change. Does everyone see why that is? I'll need those 3. Here in this form, why do I need the 3 props: first name, last name, and the handle input changed? We don't have those values, right? We don't have state in this component. So we had state in the parent component. We no longer have access to that state, so those have to be passed out as props now. So let's go ahead and do our fun destructuring, because it's way more fun than anything else, right? Do handle input changed. One thing about destructuring is your parameter list starts to grow and get really kind of ugly as it gets big. So one format that we use at work that you can use, or you can come up with your own, like that. That way the list, as it gets big, it just goes down. It's a little bit easier to keep track of.
So you really have to pay attention to that return.
your arrow.
Yes, you do have to pay attention to this.
Right there, otherwise you just lost.
Yeah, it does make it a little harder to like read.
Mhm.
But you know, obviously you don't want it to be really wide because that's even harder. So this isn't ideal, but in my opinion, it's better as that input list gets big. We can easily go in here, get rid of this or the this.state because those things are no longer applicable. What did I delete? Oops, a whole bunch. Oh my gosh, multiple cursors. And this and this.state no longer exist. We don't want them. Sometimes Visual Studio does that. It just adds random packages in. It's like, thanks, I did not. I don't even know what that is. So we need our export default. Then we also need our prop types. Yay. What an admin. Anyone want to try to define prop types for me? What are they going to be? We have 3. We have, so what is first name going to be? Prop types, string. Do we want it to be required? Neither would be required. Why? Why would neither be required? Why would they need to be required? Tell me. What if they're empty? Do we allow that? If we make them required, we can't allow that. We do want it, don't we? Yeah, so we need them to be empty, right? We need them to be, or that this component won't even like work. So they can't be required. Be nice, but they can't be. String, last name's the same way. And then we have this guy, handle input changed, which we know is a function, right? Not func. This one is required. Why is this one required? That would change our state, right? Our first name may be blank, our last name may be blank, but if we don't have this handle input changed, we can never change those. And that defeats the purpose of this altogether. So this one definitely should be required all the time. Make sense?
So when you say use required, like for the first one, it won't work. So what level does that go?
It'll still render, everything will still work fine. It'll just, you'll get an error in your console saying, hey, this is required, but you don't have anything. And we don't want that. Like that's a visual cue for other developers to say, oh, something's not right. You know? So everything will still render properly because React's not going to just shut you down for that. But you don't want to defy the prop types because they're there for safety reasons. So, right, yeah. Cool. We have this user form. Who needs me to stay here? We good? Nice. So let's go back to our app.js. Import user. Oh my gosh. It's really hard to like, I never realized how hard it is to type while you're looking at a screen that's to your left. It's weird. So we should probably do the index.js thing for this one. So the Bootstrap one's a little different because we're going to need the explicit components. We may not need all of them. But on this user form, we'll go ahead and do index.js, HJS, nice. And this is going to be your export default. From user form. Right? So we all remember what the index.js does? And if you're requiring a folder or you're importing a folder, it looks for the index.js by default. Tries to import that. User form exports a default only, right? It export default user form. So we're saying we're going to export the default of user form as the default. Again, basically.
Could you then use that to switch up styling and stuff like that?
The reason why it's nice is if you do have styling, like you don't have to go through. It's another way to organize. So I could put the app.js up here in this components folder and all these in the components folder and just access them directly. But then I have to put the styles somewhere. And this is nice because I can keep all the styles with their components, right? So it's just an organization thing. You don't have to do it this way, but I kind of like it. It's okay.
Yeah. Sorry. So why do you need that and you don't need it in your Bootstrap?
I'm not using it in the Bootstrap by choice because there's a lot of different components in there, and there's always going to be, so you should be explicit about which ones you need. What? Oh, user form. So this one's about to make a huge difference, right? Go ahead and do that. First name equals, we'll go to this.state.first name. Go ahead and copy that. Whoops. Come on. With last name. Handle input changed equals this.handle input changed. Okay. Look at it. This should all still work exactly the same. Even though we've really changed like the way the structure looks here. It hasn't really changed at all, but it looks like it has. And look at how much cleaner the app.js is now. As opposed to being this big block of just garbage.
Yeah, sorry. So when you include that user form, it's going to look at that folder and then look at the index.js first.
Yes. Because I'm importing from that folder directly and not user form/user form, I could also do that. No, it wouldn't make a difference.
Oh, I see.
Can you go back to that?
Okay, you just include the folder. You require folder. Okay. Okay.
Because we need to pull the default from there, like. Not really. So you have to export. Like you have to export an object like this, right? There's like no object, yeah. So we're like assigning one in there, and we're also using default. So I'm assuming it's exporting it as the default. Like this is a really hokey syntax. Honestly, I've never seen it before the trilogy thing. Kind of neat the way it works. But realistically, what it is import the user form, then export default user form again. That's what it boils down to.
Otherwise, you can
Yeah, so you could do export default user form, and I think that would probably still work. Yeah, I mean, that's effectively this syntax, just shortened to one line.
So under the Bootstrap folder, could I have put an index.js there and then say export default from column and then another one for container, another one for row?
Don't think so. You'd only be able to do it with one of them because it's the default export. So if you were in there and you made an index.js in the Bootstrap folder and you try to do this export default from column, export default from container, you'd get probably the first one.
Oh, okay, and then would
It'd either be the first or the last. I don't know if it would like overwrite it or what. But no, you'd have to do named exports then. So you'd have to like import the user form or import the column from column and then export column, export container, export row. So it doesn't make a difference if we import the folder or not. Like we have to get the explicit component we want. So you might as well just do it directly.
No, I was just thinking, this is one line, right? I just import the whole folder.
Right. So, I mean, you could technically import the whole folder and then destructure it to get the components you want out. That'll work. But, I don't know, it's preference at this point. There's not like a right or wrong way to do imports and exports. My coworkers might disagree, but they're wrong.
What we put in the userform.js, if we had just put that in index.js, so instead of like passing one through, if this was all just in index.js, would it?
Yeah. But that's not really a good way to write your components because, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it just because it's not what the component is, right? It's not an index.js. You might as well, at that point, just put the component in the top level with the components. So the reason why we do this is we can have CSS, like we'll have an index.js in there, but we'll also have the userform.js, the userform CSS, the userform.test, userform.whatever, right? Anything that helps it. And you can kind of like have a nice structure, everything looks the same, you know exactly where to find it. Again, the structure is really just preference. What I've found from working on these kinds of apps for a long time is that the organizations like this tend to work well in the long run. So are we all good with this user form? We're ready to do something else? Move on, add some more? So what I think we actually are going to do might be a little bit better for us to make more components is we'll take this user form, we'll add a submit button to it, and then that'll add to a list welcome username, first and last name to that list. And we're going to build like a user creation tool or something. I don't know. Just so we have another kind of component to see how it's built, that kind of thing for now. If we want to change it next week, we can. The other thing I was going to do is I was going to show you all Redux today, but the setup on Redux will probably take us the rest of the time, let alone explaining Redux. So maybe I'll explain it for like 10 minutes before we leave. And then next week we can try to dive into it because it would completely replace our stateful component and we would no longer have stateful components at all. So it's a paradigm shift. But let's go ahead. What we're going to do is we're going to add a submit button to the user form, and we're going to create a user list. And then we're going to take that user list, we're going to render it into a list of users that will say welcome user first name, last name. And it'll just keep pumping out welcome user first name, last name every time we add them. Kind of like that book list. We're going to pretty much recreate something like that. We're doing it from scratch now to give us a look at a different kind of component. So what do we have to do? We're going to have to update the state to have a users list, which is just going to be an array. Okay. We have the input change. So the input's all good because we're going to want that to reflect the user we're trying to add at this very moment. But we're definitely going to need like an on submit and stuff like that. So let's go to our user form. And in here, this is where we can add our submit button. Or control. Make this as type submit. And we can do class name equals button, or it's BTN success, I think. Right? Yep, that's good. On click equals. We're eventually gonna have a function there. Button. And right here we'll add user. Okay. So we're going to need handler, submit user. We already know we're going to need some function to submit the user, right? So we might as well just prepare for it in this file before we add it in the other one. Handle submit user. There's a few ways we can handle it. We can do what Cody was talking about earlier and actually build an anonymous function that does the e.prevent default for us, or we could just pass the event on in. We'll just pass the event on in right now. This is going to be another prop types. Func is required. Okay. Let's jump back out. Everyone good with this? All good. Take your time. All good? Okay. So before we do anything else, so we don't forget, we'll do handle submit user, and we'll just leave it blank for now. And we'll just put it here, handle submit user equals event. Or again, we need to do event.prevent default, right? We don't refresh the page. Then we need to check if there's a first name or a last name. If not, let's destructure the state. So why do we want to check if there's a first name or a last name? If there's not either of them, we can't add a user, right? If first name fire brick. I don't know what that is. Simple, immediate return. We're not going to update the state if there's not a first name and there's not a last name. Okay? So that's a better way to write it than doing if first name or last name, do something. And then we're going to do this dot set state. First name, last name. And I can explain that if we need another explanation. And then, oh, actually, sorry. These need to cancel out, right? We're going to clear these. And this dot, we need to pull the user list out. Users. All right. Users dot push First name, last name. Actually, going to users.splice. Users. I'll explain that in a second, P. This function is a good one. Does a lot. What? Uh-huh. Oh, it's not splice though. You just reminded me. It's slice. I get those two mixed up sometimes. Slice is bad. We don't do that. Slice good. Yeah. Slice creates a copy. That's okay. Now, I don't know that it's a deep copy, so technically those users that are in there are still going to be the same users, but that's okay. What's up, Trent? Well, the reason why I'm doing that is because you don't ever want to change the state. You want to create a new state. So you could just do users.push and call it good, but we don't really want to do that because you're technically changing the old state. It's weird. Mm-hmm. You have a question? Well, the first name and last name they're primitive types, so you can just use .first name .last name and put them in the set state, or put them in the user. That's fine. It's the users list, so it's a reference. So technically, you should try to copy it and create a new list, and then update the state with the new list before you do anything else. The reason for that is you don't want to accidentally change the state yourself. Like, you shouldn't do that. So this technically doesn't need to be done. It's just a little bit safer. Kind of, yeah. It's very explicit, that's for sure. So it copies the user's list into a new list, and then we're going to push a new user, which is just a first name, last name. Nothing crazy. Copy that list. This copies the list. So it's basically just take the whole thing, put all the elements that are in this one, and put it in a new one. Yeah, that's a good one. I could do that. Yeah, this is actually much better. Good call. Yes, 6 using the rest, yeah. Yeah, so it's like it's a new array instance. So I'm not mutating the same array over and over again. So plug that bad boy into handle submit user. And for right now,
Line 40 is, aren't you just resetting? Is that what you're saying? You're resetting?
Yeah, I'm destroying the old users array and putting in this new one.
Okay.
Huh?
I mean, why would you do that rather than just pushing your new object?
If we just push to the original array, we're mutating the existing state. You could do that, sure, but you don't want to do that. What you want to do is get a new array, put everything in that new array, and then work with the new array. And the reason why is if for some reason that old array is stuck in memory, or you get it somewhere else and you make changes to it, it'll change the whole app, everywhere that had that array. So every time you use an array, you want to copy it. For the most part, you want to copy it and push it to the new state. Copy it's safer. It's called immutability. That's something we strive for in React. it's hard to visualize the problems that this can cause unless you've seen them, and they're not fun. So copying it is a better thing to do than just using the same one. Okay, so this
Why
function.
don't we need this in front of panel submit user down in user form?
We do. Typo, that's why. Yep. So I can actually, just to verify that this is doing something, let's console.log the new users, right? Well, this is weird. The new users. I want to see the whole array. So it shouldn't do anything, and it's not if there's no first name or last name. There is, we get an array of objects. Okay, now the array has 2. You can see state is changing. Right? I don't know what this border is, but it's really hideous. We'll worry about that later. All right, everyone good with that? Now what do we need to do? We need to build, one small thing we can do is verify that this submit button can't be pressed if there's no first name or last name. So remember that conditional we saw on the disabled? We're going to add that. Or that ternary we saw. No, it was just conditional. It just returns, so it's another safety check, but we also want to disable it so the user knows they can't click it. This disabled. Yep. No, they wouldn't be able to click it at all. Yeah, see? And I add a first name, I add a last name, and it's like, oh, cool. Oh, and then it goes away. So that was, really easy, and we can do it inside of here. We don't have to expose it to the app.js. It's just built into that submit button. It's pretty nice. Yeah, that is exactly right. Okay. One other thing we should probably do in this user, actually. So this build welcome message currently takes in state, right? But now we're really going to want to do it for every user because we're going to produce a list that says welcome new user, welcome new user, welcome new user, whatever. Just because that's what I decided we want this app to do. So we're going to change this. Oops. Oh my word. Lord help me. I need a new laptop. It's pretty, it works really well, man.
It's not a Mac, but I'm just saying.
It will never be a Mac. That's Alex's biggest fault.
The man's drinking the juice.
Yeah. Okay, so we have this build welcome message now takes in a first name and a last name. And we're actually going to create the welcome message. And we are going to add it to the user. So we're going to build like a more robust user object. Okay. And here, really quick, without doing a whole lot of work, I'm going to build a UL. The UL is just basic HTML. Remember, we need a key. If we're going to use like an LI or something, we need a key. And we're going to create a key from the first name, last name, since that'll probably be pretty unique. And we can actually make this a little better. Don't need this return statement in here. Let's see if it works. Oh, messed up. Messed up somewhere. Have to figure that one out. Here's how we test. Now I'm going fast. Bear with me, I'll let you see the code. So we can look at here, undefined. Ooh. Oh. Destructuring. Killed me in this one. Killed me. Sometimes it can be dangerous. Okay. We no longer need this. All right. Code time. Here's our new list. Who needs to see what code? I know I went fast. What code do you want to see? I know I went fast, so I don't want anyone to get lost on the code I just added. Did you change your build welcome message? Look like this. Take in a first name and a last name. That good, Abby? Well, I took the state out. I was using the state before, and I destroyed that. Now I'm just taking in a first name and a last name. That really should be the only major difference from how I wrote it before. If you copied mine exactly. If you didn't, yours might look different. I can try to add some comments. Okay. Did your handle submit user? Was that updated properly? Also different. Easy.
So that key just makes it unique.
Yeah.
So if there was another one, like if there were two John Smiths, then the second one wouldn't print,
It'd probably still print, but I'm sure you get an error.
or you get an error.
The keys are being stored and used by React to render more effectively. So they're stored on your React component. React does something with them.
In this case, this is both not required, it's both flag.
Yeah, it'll still work, but it does give you an error message. If you get those errors, yeah, it'll still work, but you get an error, which you shouldn't ignore. Even though it still renders, you shouldn't ignore it,
How do you like come up with these unique keys?
Usually if you have like a database ID, it's going to be unique, right? Anything that you can guarantee unique like that, UUIDs are good. So universally unique identifier. You can generate one of those if you really needed to. They're pretty much guaranteed to be unique. It's like something like 1 in 10 trillion chance that you'll actually get a collision. So things like that. No, you don't need the key for map. You need the key if you have a list of child React components being rendered in something. So if you have a list, right, it's an array of components, you need a key.
It's still fine. Why even have the key? Other than just,
It's a React thing, I'm pretty sure, for render speed. So if you don't have a key, or if you have keys that they collide, like the same key, React doesn't know how to find those as well. And so I think you wouldn't notice a problem until you had a lot of elements. You had 10,000 elements, you'd notice a problem. It'd be slow, might not work. Who knows?
maybe indexing it on the fly.
Yeah, probably. Sorting it or something like that.
Can you go back to the user form?
Yes.
So here you're requiring first name and last. So the other that little checkling is
I'm not requiring first name and last name.
Oh no, I'm sorry. In the disabled.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I am requiring a first name or a last name. Yep.
Counts as N.
Yes. So this is saying if there is no first name and there is no last name, then disable it.
Right.
But that means I require one or the other for you to save a user. Probably not the best thing. Usually you should require a specific one, but one or the other is required for the user.
So that means, but this is if you don't have a first name and last name, it's not going to be enabled, though. I mean,
If you have
that
if the first name is empty and the last name is empty, it's disabled.
it's disabled.
As soon as you add one or the other, it's enabled. You can add a user.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great. I got you. I think that's not true.
It brought our attention.
No, not
That clicky game doesn't have a README file.
The clicky game?
Yeah.
Is that one of the homeworks?
Yep.
The last one? Okay. Oh, look. I'll help anyone who's still looking at this. Like Abby, if you're having problems, I'll help you fix it. But we're gonna call it for today. I'll be here for probably another 15 minutes until my wife shows up to pick me up. Yeah, I don't have a car, so yeah, we'll call it good on the stream though, and I will commit this code really quick. I'll just commit it right now. Git add dot git commit started building our app, and then I'll push this to GitHub and I'll Slack that out in a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna stop the stream, and you all are welcome to take off or whatever you want to do. My cursor is all jacked up.
It's not showing the button.
All right, I'll come look at it. All right.